how do you reach out to those communities and make sure we all know we're in this together?
I hope I meet this standard, but what presidents have to do, good, great presidents, have always been able to persuade, convince people of what is in the joint interest of them and others. It is absolutely clear to every union member that he or she finds himself in a position where they're as much at risk as anyone else from the climate change that's going on. But you have to make it clear to them that you understand the transition for them could be devastating if it's abruptly just said, we're done, we're not doing that anymore. I would immediately start by taking and ending all fossil fuel subsidies and invest them in other subsidies relating to sustainable growth that require union jobs to be able to fulfill them. For example, I recently was at, I was up in Pennsylvania speaking to the AFL-CIO. They asked me to come and speak. And they've asked others too, who've spoken in Philadelphia. And look, I make no bones about it. I get overwhelming labor support my whole career. And I'm proud of it. I'm not apologizing for it. And one of the first questions I got asked when I got finished talking about labor law was a woman stood up and said, well, I belong to the IEBW. What's going to happen to me and my job? What are we going to do? And I began a longer discussion, which I'm not going to take your time now, to talk about how we all have to talk about this together. For example, when we talk about, for example, the IBW, the idea we're going to put in 500,000 charging stations along our new green highways that we're building, in fact, is require people to do that, people who have the expertise to do that. The reason labor gets the support it gets is because they're really good at what they do. They're experts at what they do. And so, no, but I really mean it. And so they've got to be they got to be in on the deal when we're talking about this, as to how the transition is going to take place. What we have to do, which is the harder part, in some places, we're not going to be able to replace their job. Their job is not going to be automatic. Coal miners. I used to live in Scranton, Pennsylvania. We moved to Delaware because when coal died in northeast Pennsylvania, everything died. My dad wasn't a coal miner, but my dad was a white-collar salesperson, and there were no work. So we moved down from Scranton. But I watched how they've still been struggling to try to figure out how do we replace those, and they're good-paying jobs, they were. Like right now, they pay up to $100,000 a year, some of these jobs, because they break their neck about 300 feet to 500 feet underground. And so it's not easy, you can't guarantee, but you have to guarantee that you will provide for a transition for people to train them in new industries, if in fact they're prepared to do that. But that's not a very welcoming thing. If I said to all of you, you're a farmer, well, you know, you've been farming your whole life, but I tell you what, you're going to be out of business, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to train you to run a grocery store. You're going to look at me like, come on, man. So we've got to work with all these interests, labor, business, environmentalists, because the truth of the matter is, they all know, everybody knows, it's in their naked self-interest to get this problem solved. It's not going to matter. They're not going to be able to look at their kids and say, I'm doing the right thing by resisting all of this. What we have to take on are the major special interests. The major special interests aren't going to like it at all. And they're all the fossil fuel guys, mainly. That, not just, but they're primarily that. So what you have to do is provide transition where possible. And for example, when people in fact do not have the capacity to go to another job of similar nature, that's why I propose that we provide for free education to anybody who comes back as displaced. Because we can retrain. For example, there's 100,000 high-tech manufacturing jobs that no one's able to fill. Because no one knows how to run a photovoltaic machine on a factory floor. No one knows how you go down the list of things. Anybody who could do the job they were doing before could easily on a factory floor, could easily go ahead and learn how to run a photovoltaic machine. That's why we came up with $8 billion in our administration to connect with businesses, community colleges, and workers and say, okay, this is closed down, but here's what's available, and it pays more than you were earning before. It pays an average of boom, It takes 19 weeks to a year and a half to train folks to do those jobs. But let's not kid each other. This is going to be tough on some people. This is going to be tough. For everybody to say this is, oh, this is all great, everyone's going to just be, we're going to, be, it's going to be hard. But it's absolutely necessary, and I think what's happened is people get it. And we have to focus first, in my view, on distressed neighborhoods and communities, because they're the ones that are getting killed the most. The little town I lived in Claymont, Delaware, the largest, the more oil refineries just across the line, literally within a half a mile, in Marcus Hook, Pennsylvania, Chester, Pennsylvania, Eddystone, those places, than there are in the Houston Harbor. When I was a kid, you'd get up in the morning, and my uncle would drop us off at school, and there was a frost on the windshield. Turn on the windshield where there'd be an oil slick. And we wondered why I got asthma and a lot of other people, and why Delaware for the longest time had the highest incidence of cancer of anybody, any place around. Well, all of a sudden we started figuring it out, but we worked it out with all those oil workers by transitioning them to other things. But it's hard. It's a hard thing. But we cannot stop because of that. Just because it's hard doesn't mean we can't. We have to provide for alternatives, let them know we mean it, not walk away from the commitment. But there are some real alternatives as well. You want to see what it's saying? Okay, you got it. She's taking pictures of my notes here. Tax credit for homeowners who install energy efficient technology in windows, which are made by Pella Windows. Expanding and extending tax credits to purchase electric vehicles. Credits for production. You might hand it out to those folks. Anyway.
Thank you, Vice President Biden. Great answer. Really appreciate that commitment.
Answer yes or no if you have easy questions.
Vice President Biden, it's really important that we maintain that commitment to our farmers and